Hello, welcome to Unboxed God, where we detox from religion and discover the God who refuses to fit inside the boxes we were given. I'm Tolu Sarah Johnson, and here we explore who God really is beyond fear, beyond formulas, and beyond everything we were taught to perform. If you're hungry for a real relationship with Him, you are in the right place. Let's dive in. So this is going to be the continuation of the of the commandments of Jesus. I am currently going through at the moment. There is 50 of them, and I still got 43 of them to go through. So this is going to be the 8th commandment, and that will be at the beginning of a new, in this let me rephrase. This is going to be an introduction to the second theme in this commandment, which is forming. The first 7 commandments I've gone through sit within the theme of allegiance, lordship. And this is now shifting into a new thing, which is forming, inner heart transformation. Commandments that Jesus spoke about how your heart can be transformed and be renewed by His word. So there's 10 commandments that is going to be in here. But before we dive into the first commandment, it will be good to introduce this theme. So just give me 1 minute. Thank you. I just needed to make sure that I'm recording as well for the purpose of transcribing later. So for me, what Jesus transforms first is the inside. We've learned about our allegiance, but now we're talking about what needs to happen within. Because before Jesus confronts a behavior, or before Jesus confronts behaviors, He confronts formation. Before He addresses what you do, He addresses who you are becoming. And before He speaks to the visible fruit of a life, it goes directly to the hidden root. And this is where the second theme begins, from allegiance to formation. In the first theme, something essential was settled: lordship. Authority was transferred. Ownership was clarified. Jesus was no longer admired. He was followed. That's the intention. That you do no longer just admire Jesus, but you're willing to follow Him. That was what the first set of 7 commandments and the theme of allegiance, those were the things He was supposed to establish or introduce into your life. But allegiance alone does not produce Christ-likeness. Yes, the fact that you say, yes, I'm in lordship with you. A person can submit in name and still strive with an untransformed inner world. And that's what the church is today. It's filled with a lot of people that think that they've been saved, that they think that they've got Jesus as their Savior and their Lord, but they are still going about trying to do the work of God with an untransformed inner world. When I started this conversation with God about 2.5 years ago, I would say within me there were a lot of untransformed pain in my life. My life was not transformed as supposed to be. There was quite a lot of religious ways of thinking, of doing things, which has impacted the true transformation that God could have done in my life. So God had to do a lot of work in transforming who I am and forming me into this new person that you can benefit from. So, even though I submitted in name, I still lived with an untransformed inner world. And this is where Jesus now turns inward. Because obedience without inner formation becomes strained. And discipleship without transformation becomes performance. So Jesus begin again, this time inside you. Yes. Why, you might be wondering, why does Jesus always start with the heart? Jesus is not interested in a surface compliance. He is forming citizens of a kingdom, not actors in a religion. And that is why his teachings consistently move beneath behavior into the realm of thoughts, motives, desires, reactions, judgments, inner posture. Jesus knows something we often forget. You cannot live beyond what you are formed to be. You must restrain behavior for a season. You may restrain a behavior for a season. But what is unhealed, untrained, or unsubmitted inside will eventually surface. Just like I said about me. The moment I started speaking with God every day, my religion just began to surface out. And that was how I knew I was heavily religious. And this is why Jesus does not begin with rules. He begins with reformation of the inner life. And that was what Papa did to me. That was what God did to me. That was what heaven did. They started from transforming me from within out to outward. And by that, I'm able to carry the vessel. I'm able to carry the responsibility that He has committed into my hand. Because my life was formed before the whole of heaven. Heaven knew who I was when I started my first conversation with God. And they know who I am now 2.5 years after. I've grown. I've developed immensely. So, this theme is not about becoming morally impressive. It is not about managing emotions, suppressing thought, or achieving spiritual perfection through effort. Forming a spirit-led transformation. It is the slow, patient reshaping of the heart until obedience becomes natural and righteousness becomes instinct. And Jesus is not asking you to try harder. He is inviting you to be remade. Yes. So, the inner world governs everything. Every action flows from an inner source. Anger begins in thought. Lust begins in gaze. Anxiety begins in misplaced trust. Hypocrisy begins in divided loyalty. Judgment begins in hidden superiority. And greed begins in fear of lack. Coveting begins in comparison. So Jesus targeted these not because He is harsh, but because He is protective. And we will be going through these parables, which I am going to list for you, which is Commandment 8, which because it's a continuation. The first book was 7 commandments. So this is Commandment 8. Don't call your brother a fool. And what will this be doing? Confronting anger, contempt, and the violence of words. Then we move to Commandment 9. Do not gaze with lust. Transforming desire before it becomes action. Then we move to Commandment 10. Don't swear and hold. Forming truthfulness from the inside out. Then we go to Commandment 11. Don't be anxious. Learning trust that steadies the soul. Then we move to Commandment 12. Judge not, that you may not be judged. Removing hidden superiority and restoring humility. Then we go to Commandment 13. Don't waste time on argumentative people. Protecting discernment, peace, and spiritual focus. Then we move on to Commandment 14. Beware of hypocrisy and greed. Exposing divided loyalty and hidden motives. Then we move on to Commandment 15. Don't be disgraced from hearing God's words. Guarding the heart from dullness and resistance. Then we move on to Commandment 16. Don't covet your brother's blessing. Healing comparison and learning contentment. Then we go on to the last the last commandment, which is commandment 17. Strive for perfection, growing into maturity, wholeness, and Christ-likeness. So hopefully by us going through these 10 commandments, he will be able to change our inner world because Jesus knows the importance of our inner world, because it determines relationships, it determines peace, it determines discernment, it determines resilience, it determines intimacy with God. And if the inside is fractured, the outside will eventually collapse. And you might say, why does this commandment come next? The commandments in this theme are not random, they are surgical. Each one addresses a core internal posture that shapes how you see God, yourself, and others. And when you look at the commandments, Jesus begins by confronting contempt, then desire, then truthfulness, then anxiety, then judgment, then distraction, then hypocrisy, then spiritual dullness, then comparison, and then maturity. So, this is not accidental. It is formation in sequence. Jesus is building a heart that can love without resentment, that can desire without corruption, that can trust without fear, that could speak without deception, that could discern without pride, and that could mature without hardness. So forming is hidden work. Yes, most of this work happens where no one sees it. Yes, they happen where no one sees it. In thought life, in inner dialogue, in reactions you never verbalized, in moments where you choose obedience quietly. And this is why many avoid formation. There is no applause. Yes, there's no platform. There's no visible reward. But heaven watches closely, because who you are becoming matters more than what you appear to be. And I've learned that now, because who I am becoming is different from the Tolu Sarah Johnson of yesterday. The today Tolu Sarah Johnson has been refined and continually being pruned by God on a day-by-day basis. And that is what our relationship will be forever. You will continue to be refined. You will continue to be pruned so that you can be a better person, not just for yourself, for God and for the world around you. So let's look at this analogy, the sculptor's workshop. Imagine a sculptor shaping stone. The first strikes are not delicate. They are forceful. Pieces fall away. The stone looks worse before it looks better. Formation feels like that. Old patterns crack. Hidden attitudes are exposed. Internal resistance rises. Yes, there were so many times my internal resistance did rise when God and the saints were taking me through and exposing the religion in me. I resisted the Lord, but it's part of the journey. But the sculptor sees the form long before you do. Who is the sculptor? God, Jesus. Jesus is not destroying you. He is revealing you. All the things that Papa has done for me in this last 2.5 years is not destroying me. It is revealing me so that I can grow and I can be a better person. It's forming me into that person that could be useful for him in his kingdom. So this theme is an invitation, not an accusation. These commandments are not meant to shame you. They are meant to free you. Jesus is not standing over you with disappointment. He's walking with you in patience. Struggle does not disqualify you. Resistance does not surprise it. What matters is teachability. Forming requires willingness, not perfection. So, what is Jesus ultimately producing? By the end of this theme, Jesus is not looking for behavior modification. He is forming gentleness, clarity, emotional stability, spiritual discernment, inner authority, wholehearted, hearted, wholehearted devotion, basically. A person whose inner life is aligned no longer needs constant restraint. They live from wholeness. So, the question this team asks is, before you continue, pause and reflect. What is happening inside you? Not what do you say, not what do others see, not what do you believe, but what is forming within you. Because this is where the kingdom takes root. This is forming. And it is here, quietly, deeply, patiently, that Jesus begins to remake the earth. God bless you as we continue. See you in the first commandment in this theme and the eighth commandment overall. God bless.